I've had surprising people who I would have thought would not care for my judicious use of cussing say how much they love it because it's true. So maybe a year after-ish, I was at a party with a new friend who's now my soul sister best friend, but who didn't know Eric. I had met sort of briefly. In fact, we were introduced at a different party where someone said to her, "Oh, that's Lisa. Her husband just died." That's how they introduced me. So classy. Anyways, so we were at a party with her, really fun, great music. I remember thinking like, wow, this feels good to not just be in the depth of my pain and my grief. But mostly people I didn't know really, and this was a relatively new friend at the time. And I reached into my purse, and for some reason there was a printed out picture of Eric, which I don't remember how it got in there. I didn't necessarily carry around pictures. And I reached in, there's a picture of Eric and I burst into like heaving, sobbing, ugly, no controlled crying. And my friend kind of noticed and came over, and we went to the side, and I just, showed her the picture, and we sort of, cried. And I just said, grief is such a sneaky. And she, having experienced the stillbirth of her son, Zion, understood intimately how true that is. And it just hung around in my head. That was many years before I created the podcast and, of course, before I wrote the book. But it became a kind of expression between the two of us. And I want to name the reason that I chose it because much to the chagrin of many people, like, oh, are you going to get blocked on social media? And I can't pay to advertise my podcast because of the swear word in it. All the reasons. There's a real double entendre to grief as a sneaky bitch, which I'm not sure if everybody quite recognize. On the one hand, grief is a sneaky bitch because grief is messy and nonlinear, and it is, reminded and reactivated when we experience new losses or we cross paths with certain people, right? So there's the natural way in which grief is a sneaky bitch. It is inevitably sneaky. But also, grief is a sneaky bitch because we have a misguided, limited, narrow, and frankly wrong story of grief in our culture. So the expectations that we have of ourselves and others in grief are so vastly different from our lived experience of grief that we get unnecessarily caught off guard.